All right, ladies and gentlemen. So today we're going to learn a little bit about a different style of annotation called annotating for comprehension. Up to this point, you've learned about annotating for analysis. That is a strategy we look at to look more deeply into a text, to analyze more deeply. But there are times where we get a text and it is challenging, and we cannot figure out a central idea because we struggle with the text itself. We start reading the first 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, and we realize we are lost. This is where annotating for comprehension comes in. Annotating for comprehension is a strategy you can use where it's really designed to make you understand a core text better, which is really a good first start when the text is something that you are lost in. Now, the very first step of annotating for comprehension and understanding that text better is to note the title. So after you read the first 2 or 3 paragraphs and realize you're confused, you go to the title and you make a guess, a prediction. So most of you guys have already done that. You did that in class. However, if you haven't, you can look at mine. My own true name, I was like, what might this text be about based on my own true name, that title? And I thought, oh, maybe it's about someone who hides their true self. So that was my guess. The next step is you read the text from start to finish without stopping. And we did that already as a class. So you just read, even if parts are confusing, even if there are words you don't know, you do not stop, you read to the end. The reason you do that next is one reason why sometimes a text confuses us is we don't have important context. So I might read a text and be very confused by the first half of it, but maybe at the end I realize, oh, this is all from the perspective of an earthworm. Now I realize why he's underground and it's really dark and all these weird things are happening. Makes perfect sense now. Or sometimes we're reading a nonfiction text and we just can't figure out what their point is. And then in their conclusion, they kind of bring it all together really nicely and neatly. They restate their claim, they sum up their major arguments, and it suddenly clicks in our head. So the first step is always to read through from start to finish after we make a prediction based on the title, because a lot of times having the bigger picture can really make certain things that would otherwise be confusing much more clear. So we've already done that. We read from start to finish. And after you do that, you just gist at the bottom and you just do your best job. You obviously might have struggled with the text, but you can still make a basic gist. So I'm going to put gist, girl goes to college and slowly separates from boyfriend. Now, this could be not fully right, and it could have some errors in it. But the whole point is it's my understanding based on a first read through. So if you guys take a second, pause this video and write that down. So we've done the first 2 steps of annotating for comprehension. Step number 1, note the title before you really read. Step number 2, read the whole text without stopping and do a gist at the end, 1 to 2 sentences. The next step is to then look at those specific paragraphs more generally and actually make paragraph annotations. So that's what we're going to do right now, and I'm going to help you with that because it's not only just summarizing, but you also want to put those summaries in very brief words and letters, usually 5 or fewer words, so that they do fit in your margin and they don't slow you down too much. Because if you spend too much time writing just statements, it can often get in the way of you comprehending. So we're going to do this as a model, and all I want you to do is copy along as we continue on here. My boyfriend of 3 years had lost his college ROTC scholarship, and when his parents said, "You have to come home," we decided I should come home too. At the time, it sounded like a good idea. Our social life at the university in Austin, Texas, had been tied to the ROTC students, and if he wasn't in the program, I didn't feel the university had much to offer us. So this was all about how the narrator and the boyfriend both leave college. And this is the maximum amount of words we really want to use, 5. Cool. So we both enrolled at the smaller university in our hometown, San Antonio. He seemed to want things to go on as they did before, but something inside me wanted something different. He stayed with his business major, but since the new university didn't have a speech department, I chose to become an English major. So if I'm justing this paragraph, I'm looking at it, and basically like what happens in the plot, they return home and she changes her major. So in the margin, I'm going to say that, but just more briefly. So new college and major. Super short, super brief. Notice how you use abbreviation for and. I use the plus sign. It just, again, saves us time to write more briefly. In Austin, we had taken many classes together. Now in our third year, we were both taking courses in our majors. We only saw each other between classes or if we rode together in his car or mine to the university. So if I look at all three sentences, they're both about her and her boyfriend are just not spending as much time together as they used to. So it's new. What is new? Equal sign. Uh, let's see. They're spending time apart. How can I word that? They're more, and I'm going to use an upward arrow for that. Separate. And I'm going to abbreviate separate. So new thing is they're more separate than they were before. And again, I'm just writing that really briefly. Besides English classes, I enrolled in a Texas history class. The professor would take roll by reading out an entire name. It was something about the way he said Diane Teresa Gonzalez, putting in all the Spanish accents on my name, that made me feel so proud of myself as a Mexican American. That first day he called my name, he also added, "And what does a person named Diana Teresa Gonzalez plan to do with her life?" So let's see. She enrolled in a history class. He used her full name and he asked her what she wanted to do in her life. So if I was to sum that up, I would say history professor. And let's see, he asked about her like individually. And he like notices her. Um, history professor. I'm going to put equal sign spotlights her. He kind of notices her for the first time. At the time, I could only shrug and say, "I'm not sure yet." So I'm not going to do anything because that kind of goes with this part up here, and it's not really new information. We already know that she's not really secure in herself. My history class was filled with interesting people who had significant life experiences that fascinated me. Many of them were older students who had returned to college to finally earn their degree. My self-confidence grew as my history professor welcomed my visits to his office, answered my questions about wrong answers on a test, and suggested ways to expand my topic for a research paper. In my English courses, teachers recognized the way I listened to them. I internalized their ideas and added my own. In my major courses, I wasn't made to feel like I didn't know what I was doing or that my thoughts didn't matter. So what I have here is like a lot of the students seem to be maybe older and more independent. And so in turn, she was becoming more independent, like her own person. So maybe I can say something like inspired. And what did she be inspired to do? Increase like independence or self-worth, maybe more independence. So and confidence, maybe. She's inspired to have more independence and confidence. That's not what I remember about the big university in Austin and taking classes with my boyfriend. The classes were so big that no professor knew my name. If my boyfriend wasn't in the class, he monopolized my time, and we spent time outside of class with his ROTC friends and no one else. So all three of these sentences are just about how her whole life was around her boyfriend. So before, because this is talking about in Austin, her life equals boyfriend. And again, I'm going to abbreviate. Who was this person? Diane Teresa Gonzalez. When my Texas history professor asked me to take the next class he was teaching, I enrolled, even though history wasn't my major. By the end of the spring semester, I became a double major and loved every minute of my courses in English and history. So she took more history classes. All right, and I'm going to stop here. You guys have 4 paragraphs left and you're going to try this yourself. So again, the idea is you're adjusting or summarizing each paragraph, but you're using a lot of abbreviations and code. So like abbreviate words when you'd understand what it mean. Use like an up arrow for more or equal signs or pluses for the word and it helps you make them a lot briefer. And I want you to try them on the next 4. But again, just in summary, what we're doing here is we're practicing annotating for comprehension. It is a strategy you use when you start reading a text and it's just too hard for you to understand. And again, just in review, step number 1 is note the title. What do you think the text is going to be about based on that text feature, based on the title? Number 2, you read straight to the end. No slowdown, no stopping. You're just there to get the overview so that if you missed something or if there's some context that's going to help you, you can get it. And at the bottom, you just do a sentence gist. Then you go back and reread a second time. And as you're reading, you're then able to focus a little bit more about the meaning of each paragraph, which you just in the margin very briefly, 5 words or less. So that's that. Do your best. As long as you show effort here and you try to follow my directions as best you can, I'll be very pleased. Have a good one.